Even the most dynamic and versatile filmmakers working today have a set series of stylistic techniques and thematic touchstones that they love to return to time and time again. And hey, if it works, why the hell not? After all, there are far worse crimes for a filmmaker to commit than remixing aspects of their prior output in the latest work. And considering how nailing down the opening of a movie in particular is arguably the hardest step, it's little surprise that many directors end up looking back to their previous films for inspiration. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 directors who started movies the same way. Number 10. Criminals chat in a diner before all hell breaks loose. Quentin Tarantino. Few filmmakers have managed to pull off as many unforgettable opening sequences as Quentin Tarantino, though earlier in his career he did repeat himself just a little bit. Tarantino's feature debut, Reservoir Dogs, of course kicks off with the 8 focal criminals sitting down to eat breakfast at a Los Angeles diner, as they banter and get their energy levels up ahead of the central diamond heist. As for Tarantino's follow-up Pulp Fiction, how does the movie open? Well, with Pumpkin and Honey Bunny sat in a diner having breakfast as they prepare to stage a hold-up there. Obviously, the content of the dialogue and the characters themselves are radically different, but in each case, a loaded diner discussion serves as the primer for the rest of the movie. Number 9. Peering into the protagonist's window. Alfred Hitchcock. Alfred Hitchcock is surely the greatest cinematic voyeur in history, as evidenced no better than by the opening sequences from 2 of his most cherished movies. Hitch's 1954 thriller Rear Window famously opens with a sequence peering out of protagonist Jeff Jeffries' window to survey the surrounding apartment block before circling back around to introduce us to Jeffries himself. It perfectly encapsulates the film's primary theme of voyeurism, while efficiently acquainting the audience with the characters residing within the sprawling apartment complex. 6 years later, though, the director opened Psycho in a similar fashion, peering around the Phoenix, Arizona skyline before slowly zooming into the window of the hotel room where Marion and Sam have been spending the afternoon. Once again, the audience is made to feel like they themselves are a voyeur, as if they're operating the gigantic telephoto lens which Jeffries himself uses in Rear Window. Number 8. A glossy slow-motion opening title sequence set to a classic song. Zack Snyder. As certain as the sun will rise tomorrow morning, so too will Zack Snyder include a bombastic slow-motion opening credit sequence in each of his movies, typically set to a classic song, perhaps even in the form of a dreary cover version. This trend began with the glorious opening titles to Watchmen, which were set to Bob Dylan's The Times They Are A-Changin', before Sucker Punch's bleak slow-mo titles were scored to a cover of Eurythmic's Sweet Dreams, and in his recent movie Army of the Dead, Alison Krauss and Richard Cheese's cover of Elvis's Viva Las Vegas blares out amid the glory slow-mo zombie carnage. It's enough of a trope for Snyder at this point that his fans would probably miss it if his movies didn't open with an indulgent, hyper-stylized title sequence. Hell, I know I would. It's clearly something he freaking loves doing as well, and in the very least, he's damn good at using it to set a distinct style and mood. Number 7. George Clooney in prison. Steven Soderbergh. Steven Soderbergh is a rarest of filmmakers who can pretty much do it all. He's nailed any genre he's ever put his mind to, and boasts one of the most enviable diverse filmographies of any director in history. But that doesn't mean that he's beyond repeating some motifs throughout his work. For instance, Soderbergh opened 2 movies within a 3-year period with the same wonderful sight: George Clooney in prison. 1998's crime caper Out of Sight begins with a botched bank robbery sending Jack Foley, played by Clooney, to prison, and 2001's Ocean's 11 similarly kicks off with Danny Ocean, again played by Clooney, attending a parole hearing while in the slammer. If nothing else, it simply provides the double proof that Clooney looks better in prison duds than most of us do in our Sunday finest. Number 6. A foreshadowing opening shot presented out of context. David Fincher. David Fincher is as dynamic and singular as filmmakers get, though he did repeat one particular thematic and stylistic motif in 2 of his movies, albeit 15 years apart. Fight Club opens with a scene from the very end of the movie taken totally out of context, where the protagonist is held hostage by Tyler Durden without the audience knowing the film's big plot twist and how that recontextualizes the scene completely. Similarly, Gone Girl opens with a shot of the back of Amy Dunn's head, which her husband Nick strokes before she turns around, and Nick espouses his desire to find out what she's thinking. Fincher ingeniously ends the film with a repeat of this shot. This time though, Amy's apparently ambiguous stare is replaced with a more deliberate loaded glance informed by the events of the movie. In each case, the opening scene is designed to mystify the audience during an initial viewing, but give them one of those aha moments on a repeat watch, viewing that striking initial image through a completely different lens. Number 5. The enigmatic protagonist is wordlessly introduced. Paul Thomas Anderson. Paul Thomas Anderson loves starting his movies with a patient, gorgeous montage which introduces us to the protagonist without ever having them personally say much of anything at all. Anderson most notably employed this technique in There Will Be Blood, which details the early life of Daniel Plainview as a prospector in a mesmerizing 14-minute sequence without a single line of dialogue being spoken. In The Master, Anderson similarly has protagonist Freddie Quell speak just a single line in the opening 6 minutes about how to get rid of crabs of all things, while featuring him in a number of peculiar situations. Anderson's most recent film, Phantom Thread, similarly introduced audiences to Reynolds' Woodcock through a montage depicting the day-to-day operations of his fashion house, and it's an entire 4 minutes before he says anything more than a passing greeting to anyone. It's an infinitely more interesting and creative way to acquaint audiences with a character, focusing more on what they do and how they do it rather than just talking ad nauseum. Number 4, an ultra slow-mo depiction of a traumatic event, Lars von Trier. If you thought Zack Snyder had cornered the market on unforgettable slow-motion opening montages, then, well, think again. The first 2 entries into Lars von Trier's Depression trilogy, Antichrist and Melancholia, both kick off with gorgeous yet devastating opening sequences set to classical music. Antichrist's opening is a monochrome ultra slow-mo depiction of the night that a couple's son fell to his death from their apartment window while they were busy having sex, set to a classical opera piece, the name of which I absolutely will not mangle here, but hopefully will be flashing up on screen. Melancholia, meanwhile, is a surreal slow-motion tableau of the movie's primary themes and images, culminating in the collision of Earth with rogue planet Melancholia, annihilating all life on Earth, and is scored to the prelude to a Richard Wagner piece. This one I actually can pronounce, but we'll have it thrown up anyway just to keep things stylistically consistent. Both montages ride on a firm wave of depression energy. Antichrist covers the event which causes the depression in the central characters, while Melancholia encapsulates a woman in the midst of a depression ready to accept her fate. Even if you don't vibe personally with Von Trier's work, and if you don't, I don't blame you, these montages are beautiful mini masterpieces all by themselves. Number 3, a major character narrates a slick opening montage, Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese is as consistently brilliant as any filmmaker has ever been, having popularized many of the stylistic tropes adopted by lesser filmmakers today. Perhaps Scorsese's most prominent contribution to modern cinema, though, is in mastering the art of the slick opening montage in which the protagonist narrates their own introduction. First off, we have the best of the lot. Henry Hill's classic As Far Back As I Can Remember, I Always Wanted to Be a Gangster speech from Goodfellas, while The Departed used villain Frank Costello to set the scene of the Boston crime racket, and The Wolf of Wall Street saw Jordan Belfort basically giving viewers the sales pitch of his own life story. Yet each of these openings is dynamic and entertaining in their own original way. It doesn't seem remotely lazy because it's such a dynamite technique, and one which Scorsese can execute better than just about anyone. Number 2, masked men pull off a daring mission, Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan sure does love opening his missions with masked men pulling off elaborate missions, huh? The Dark Knight, of course, kicked off with a mask-clad Joker pulling off an ingenious Gotham bank heist, while sequel The Dark Knight Rises saw the masked villain Bane extract a nuclear physicist from CIA custody in a daring mid-air assault. And in Tenet, the protagonist dons a gas mask to salvage an artifact from a Kiev opera house. The set pieces are certainly distinctive enough that it doesn't feel like Nolan is just lazily repeating himself, even if there are absolute commonalities in all 3. More than anything, Nolan clearly has a real fondness for opening his movies with high-concept James Bond-style suspense scenes, and why the hell not? He's good at them. Number 1, terrifying hypnotic opening titles, Gaspar Noé. Nobody produces an opening title sequence quite like Gaspar Noé, who on 2 occasions in particular has left viewers flabbergasted with his intentionally obtuse, unconventional, and potentially seizure-inducing opening credit crawls. His controversial 2002 thriller Irreversible rolls the credits past the viewer in mirrored reverse, meaning it's practically impossible to read most of the names listed as they scroll by. This isn't confusion for its own sake, though. The film itself unfolds in reverse chronological order, so it's thematically appropriate for the titles to be presented this way as well. But Noé truly outdid himself in the 2009 film Enter the Void, which opens with a hallucinogenic sandblast of frantic titles, most of which can't be read because they either flash past far too fast or are presented in hyper-stylized, barely legible text. Again though, this isn't Noé simply trolling audiences for the hell of it. The film itself is an experimental acid trip depicting one man's dying dream, so it all fits that the credits themselves are experimental, groundbreaking, and totally terrifying. So, say what you will about the guy, but he sure knows how to set an intensely unsettling mood from the jump. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Were there any directors that you know of that could have fit on this list? And what do you think about these openings? While you're down there as well, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't know, I've been Josh. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.